Hello, my name's Martin Warwick. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of TelecomTV from London in England, and I'm here in Washington DC in the US at TIA 2013, and I'm talking with Chris Koeneman, who is VP Worldwide Sales and Global Marketing with ADTRAN. Let's do some serious stuff first.
Sure.
Wireless virtualization is a sort of out there somewhere that people want to get to. It's a goal to get to. How close are we and why?
We are close. There are products on the market where virtualization has taken place. So that control plane, all that network management, that has been virtualized. So it does exist. There are products out there that have been virtualized. Absolutely.
Okay, now, given that, how do you keep up, given that demand is growing almost exponentially for the cloud and so on and so forth, data, video, the whole gamut. How do you keep up with the demand as the demand for cloud and network virtualization continues to build?
Well, I think virtualization, we've all accepted what virtualization has done in the server world. So there's really two sides to any application. There's network and there's compute. And on the compute side, in terms of virtualization, we are well advanced. That's been happening 10 years on the compute side with servers. Very advanced. It's just now starting with the network side of it. So virtualization is just starting there, and it almost has to start. Because if you think about on the server side, virtualization completely changed the economics. So what you can do inside a data center now is vastly different than what it was 10 years ago. Now that same process is just now happening on the network side, and it has to happen because there's just no other way to cost effectively scale network services unless you apply virtualization.
Okay. Now, the industry is trying to offload traffic to keep the network moving along at an efficient pace, and you've recently released a new product you call BlueSocket. It's network virtualization. How do you virtualize Wi-Fi?
Right, because it seems kind of odd, like how you're just connecting to a radio. What's virtualized about that? Because there's still physically a radio, and that's absolutely the case. And that's the thing about network virtualization. You still have to have some physical, whether it's a wired port or a radio or something you're still connecting to. But the key is on network virtualization, and this principle is applied to the BlueSocket product, is the whole control and network management. So when you connect to an access point, controlling your experience and making your experience in alignment with what the operator wants for you, all of that is done by a control function. And what we've done on the BlueSocket product is virtualize that. So all of that operates inside a virtual machine. And this is so important because think of all the devices that you have right now that connect to a Wi-Fi network. You know, it used to be you might have one device. A lot of people have 3 or 4 devices. All of those devices are associating to that access point. That's a tremendous burden on the control plane because the network has to figure out who are all these devices that are associating. All of that is tremendous scale pressure for a Wi-Fi network, and that's what we virtualized. You still have that physical radio. If we can think of a way to virtualize that, we will. but what really scales then is the control plane that looks after all of those users.
Okay. Let's move on now to what's becoming a bit of a hoary old subject really, but it's still very, very relevant, which is security and the cloud. And we've heard a lot about it, there's a lot been written, there's a lot been broadcast about it. Are there any new security concerns coming into existence as you move hardware into the cloud? So
one of the security concerns is you have common hardware in the cloud. Is you really want to have that endpoint device responsible for enforcing security policies. You know, in the old networking paradigm, you kind of had all of that traffic come in and then some sort of central device. It could be a firewall in there, it could come all the way back to a router. Then that piece of hardware that would be central in the network would make a decision on discarding some traffic and deciding what was going to happen. But in the cloud atmosphere, that has to happen out at the edge, which is actually where you want it to happen. It's better off turning away that traffic right as it comes to the network. Why bring in traffic you don't want in the first place and clog up things that you don't even want it? So it's sort of like you might as well turn away that unwanted person at the parking lot rather than having them come all the way into the hotel if you can do it. So that's a shift in security with cloud-based solutions. More and more you're going to see that endpoint device enforcing the security. Okay. Moving on
one more time.
Yes.
We're at TIA 2013, and one of the slogans here is decisions are made by those who show up, and a lot have shown up here. Why do you think it's important that we have conferences like this to bring the industry together? We know it's a networking event, but what?
Sure. I think what I've always found in these conferences is I learn more about context, and I think a lot of us that come up with these solutions, you know, we kind of perfect this solution and sometimes forget about that really sets in a larger context for an operator. So that network is actually it's a complex animal that's got all kinds of different cells that work together. And you don't really see those cells until you come in here, and all of a sudden you start discovering lots of adjacent solutions that sit around you. So I would say for these conferences, the word is context, and you figure out how your solution fits into a broader context.
We're coming to the end of a long day, and
Yes.
SDN, network virtualization,
Yes.
NFV, the whole lot, it's core to what's going on. It's a very serious subject, it's a very earnest and worthy subject.
Absolutely.
Oh, nobody would deny that, but you're taking a refreshingly slightly different approach to it, where you actually introduce a wee bit of humour, and a wee bit of humour is often, you know, like a picture's worth 1,000 words. A wee bit of humour gets things over quite nicely, and you tend to remember it. So you've got a couple of Venn diagrams we were talking about off camera,
Yes.
which the sets and the subjects are quite remarkably diverse. Tell us about them.
Well, yes. So a lot of times you talk to people about SDN or network functions virtualization, both of them, and you'll get some head nods. And I think sometimes they're kind of faking it. They don't really. Well, it's and in fact I have talked to some interviewers who I think are just nodding and pretending that they understand it. So what I decided to do is kind of return back to, I remember in school, when you had to learn about things that seemed unrelated, you would relate them through Venn diagrams.
Yeah, I remember
So I thought to help people and to understand network functions virtualization and SDN, that I would use a Venn diagram in both cases to kind of explain what both are. So we'll start first with network virtualization. So again, the idea with Venn diagrams, you relate things that seem unrelated. So we'll start with network virtualization. Let's relate network virtualization with Katy Perry and the Golden Gate Bridge, right? Okay, here's three things that don't seem related. Okay, network virtualization and Katy Perry, how are they related? Both currently sexy. And they're both sexy. I mean, in 10 years, I'm not so sure. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I'm not so sure. But right now, both are sexy. So let's look at the intersection between network virtualization and Golden Gate Bridge. What do those have in common? Well, both have incredible scale. So this is one great thing about network virtualization. By virtualizing the control plane, you can really scale up a network much more cost effective. And what is more scalable and more elegant than the Golden Gate Bridge? Katy Perry and Golden Gate Bridge, both built in California. So how do you relate all of those together? What is the intersection between Katy Perry, Golden Gate Bridge, and network virtualization? I would say the success of each of those is due to, at least partly, very superior underlying infrastructure. So right there you have it. There, a very simple Venn diagram kind of explaining network virtualization.
Boom, boom. Very, very good. Okay, do the other one.
Well, now let's talk about SDN, and let's make it simple. Let's take SDN, let's put it on a Venn diagram and relate together. So let's take SDN, let's relate that to our friend the Loch Ness Monster and global warming. So let's overlay those. Okay, let's talk about those intersections. Loch Ness Monster and SDN, some say it is mythical. Some say that is mythical. We can debate that, but some say both are mythical. What about SDN and global warming? Well, I actually think data centers encourage both of those. If you have a data center, you're going to be encouraged to do SDN because you've got the computing platform underneath there and the virtual machines that you can create in order to introduce SDN. And some say that data centers actually contribute to global warming. Now, in terms of Loch Ness Monster and global warming, what do those have in common? Both are detected in large bodies of water. Global warming, we measure the ocean and we see the temperature going up. That's how we know there's global warming. And Loch Ness Monster, we have detected him in that large lake in Scotland. He pokes up every once in a while. We get a picture of him, and some say it's a fraud, some say it's real, so we don't really know. But anyway, they're both detected in large bodies of water. Now, in terms of where they all come together, how are they all three related? Well, I would say the world really changes if one of them gets loose. And that's absolutely the case. If Loch Ness Monster gets loose, my gosh, he's going to trash New York City. He's going to want to see shows for half price. We would have chaos, right? Same with global warming. If that happens, then New York City is flooded, and we have all sorts of problems there. And if SDN really gets loose, well, that absolutely redefines how a service provider will deliver services. So there you go, SDN explained with a Venn diagram.